Hey there, it's Jenny from Southern Savers. It's Monday night, which is our time for Q&A. Every week, this is your chance to ask any questions that you have saving money, and hopefully my chance to answer them. So if you've got questions, just stick them in the comments, and either I will see them or my husband will see them, and between the two of us, hopefully I will get to answer them. So every week I come with a topic, and this week is the topic that not everybody loves, but we really need to discuss, and that's budgets. Making them, keeping them, helping people agree on them, whatever the questions might be. I'm also fine with questions that are all over the place. So if you want to talk CVS or Walgreens, we can go there too. But it's always fun for me to have something different to talk about each week. And I know it's fun for other people to just get to learn some new things. So we're going to dive into that. With budgets, this is the perfect time of the year because everybody kind of starts over and says, I really want to do better this year. And honestly, you can coupon and you can cut your grocery budget and you can do other things. But if you haven't set a budget, your year's not going to look any better financially than it did last year. You have to map these things out. Just like, we can do all the typical phrases. You can't make a cake without a recipe, yada, yada, yada. You get the idea, but you need a budget. So this does not have to be huge. And I'm going to just go ahead and stick a link in to the easiest thing that you can possibly use. And that is a printout from Dave Ramsey's website. So I'm going to stick that in the comments that you can print and just start to fill in the blanks. This is all that it needs to be. So we're not talking, that you need to go pay for some program or use an app. We will go there. There are some helpful apps. But just to get some numbers down on paper that's all you really need to do. And then assess it at least once a month and see how you're doing. So again, the link that I'm going to stick in, and I'm just going to pull it up too so you can see it on my screen. But that's really this most simple thing is just to get the basic concepts down, and it's going to help you to think about what those boxes are, where your money's going, because it's a lot more than just cutting the grocery budget or not eating out at a restaurant. We have to have a clear picture of what we're doing. So that's the plan tonight as we go through on things to try to have a general idea of what's going on financially for your family. Is going to be really helpful. So let's see, as we jump in, I do want to look over and just see if there's anything that I can already catch. And Heather's throwing in some savings rates. So thank you for that, Heather, too, because I wanted to also make sure that we covered ways to get more money into savings. So Heather's sharing right now, Navy Federal has a great rate of 3.25% on a 17-month CD. It has been years since we have seen a rate like that, Heather. Just anything above 2.8 is what we were seeing just a month ago. So that's awesome that they're up to 3.25. There was nothing that was that high. So a 17-month CD isn't that hard either. It's not even a year and a half. But a CD, if you are not familiar with that term, means that you're going to put the money in and you can't touch it for 17 months. So anyone that's not ever gotten anything other than a typical savings account, that's how a CD works. But at the end of 17 months, you will have earned 3.25% on that money. Compare that to your checking account, which is probably paying like 0.01, which is what a lot of people get. That's a pretty sweet deal. So it's very short term, and she also mentions you only need $50 to start it. So I would not pass that one up if I were you, Heather, for sure. Okay, so as we go through, and we're going to start on the budgeting. I'm glad, Elizabeth, that that's what you're doing. So this is perfect timing. I want to walk through a little bit on just the basics of how to use this kind of map out grid and what's important, the key things that I don't want you to miss. So I'm going to share my screen so that we're all looking at the same thing as we go through. But I already put the link to this in the comments so you can kind of come back and grab it too and print it out for yourself. So it works on paper. Just print it and go that route for sure. So the first bit that gets a lot of people to just jump to the very first box is the very top, and that's your monthly take-home pay. I'm going to make this as big as I can for you. That's as big as it wants to get. So this first line way up here at the top, monthly take-home pay, this stresses some people out. Because if you work in a commission environment or your pay is different every month, maybe you're hourly and it just totally depends on how many hours you're given that month, you need to always base your budget for 2019 from your numbers from 2018. We don't ever approach our yearly budget with optimism. We should approach everything in life with optimism except a budget. So if you're planning on getting a raise or hoping that you're going to get a bonus, none of that is factored in. We want to go with what we saw that we actually got last year. And if last year was some killer year, maybe you even, go with 2017 numbers just to be on the safe side. Because if you go being optimistic, you're possibly setting yourself up for some failure. We don't want to do that. We want to set yourself up to win, to beat your budget, then even better when you get a bonus or you get a raise. You can always adjust later, but we want to start with last year's numbers. So that's line number 1, monthly take-home pay. For some of us, that's always the same amount, but for a lot of other folks, it does vary. So you need to go with last year's total number, divide by 12 if we can. If you know that some months are bigger than other months, and maybe you need to even have a little bit more of a variation in that, just to kind of cover that. So from the top, and I guess I got to leave it down here so you can see, Dave always puts charity first. So Dave does approach his budget as a Christian. So tithing is coming off the top, and then any other charity and offerings, if that's not the boat that you're in, then this is going to be at the bottom for most people. That this is almost in that savings category if money is left around, but just so you kind of realize why Dave's putting it at the top. And then food is the other top of the column. So a few things that I want to mention on this whole sheet of paper. As you start to look at how things are broken out, there's not a lot of things in a budget that you can actually adjust. So for my husband and I, when we first really needed to cut our budget, things were not adding up. We were trying to live on one income. You can adjust your heating to where you're all freezing, or in the summer you're all burning up, but it really doesn't change the bottom line that much. But you can't stop driving to work that often, and you can't do some other things. You got to pay your mortgage. So when it comes down to where you can adjust to help things meet up, it really comes to just a few key categories. So in my book, that is restaurants. Under food, it's dining out, can be one of the first things that needs to go. And then it's jumping all the way down into utilities, and we get into these bottom 3 under utilities of your phone, your internet, and your cable. Now, I know internet for some people is a necessity. I run a website. I get you. I'm on your page. But for some people, it's not. Or having super high speed isn't necessarily a need. It's a want. So, just to hit those categories. But if your budget is so out of whack that those 4 things, because that's really it, that those 4 things isn't enough to get you back in the green, then you need to make some much bigger changes. So as we look at this, one thing I want you to notice, and I'm going to stick a link into a post that we put up last week too, because in this post we did a really good job of just spelling out what these percentages are right here. I know you can't read it if you're on your phone, but I'll stick a link into the post and you can pull it up in a bit when we're done. But these percentages are the most important, and Dave has them right here at the bottoms of each box and right near the total. So it's the percentage of what you should be spending in that category. And the reason I say that that's important is that when you sit down and you start to fill in these boxes for the very first time, if you realize that your mortgage, let's just throw out pretend numbers, your mortgage is $1,500 a month. That just scares me to say. Well, if you're only bringing home $3,000 a month and your mortgage is half of that, your budget will never work. It can't. So when Dave says 25 to 35%, it really is just across the board. It's not that Dave's made up these numbers. These are just financial planner, easy numbers for making a budget work. is if your housing is between 25 and 35% of your total income per month. Meaning, if we bring home, in that post that I had up and we kind of map it out for you, if I bring home $3,700 a month, then my mortgage, everything related to my house too, my taxes, my insurance, it all needs to be $937 or less to hit that 25% mark. You could go as high as the 35% mark, but anything else, it's not going to work. So if you are really in we're living in debt, it's just getting worse moment, there are probably some big decisions that need to be made as you start to map this out. Am I telling you got to move? This isn't an intervention moment, but it is a sit down and ponder moment, because if things don't line up, they don't line up. Does it mean if you're making a car payment that possibly we need to sell the new car and we need to get a used car? Possibly, so that you can really make things line up. So to map this out, I'm not going to give you, actual numbers, because my husband, he doesn't even really like you to know what he looks like. That's just how he works. So we aren't going to, go into anything personal on that side, but just to kind of explain a few things for us. We do not have a car payment. We haven't had a car payment in, I would say, 10 years. When we have had a car payment, we've tried to pay it off as fast as we could, and it's always been a used car. So not having that, the only loan that we have is a mortgage payment. I am fine with that. I am not in full agreement that you need to pay cash for a house and never have a mortgage. We have a mortgage. I think that's fine as long as you get a reasonable sized house that you can afford. So when I look at these categories, not having those categories makes some things line up easier, but it doesn't take them away. So I do want to point that out here in the transportation section. There's actually no spot for a car loan. That's really on page 2 for Dave. Dave doesn't want you to have any loans whatsoever, but he does have a spot for car replacement. So at some point, your car is going to wear out and you're going to need some kind of bank of money to be able to handle what's going to happen. Or maybe you're in our boat and we need 4 new tires, really need 4 new tires. So in that situation, there needs to be money that is saved up to pay for those tires. So as you map out your budget, I need you to be thinking forward, not only in bills, but also just in terms of little buckets of money that you might be saving for some bigger expenses. And a lot of folks would put that just straight in these savings categories for emergency funds. Tires aren't emergencies, guys. Tires happen. Tires are there. You know that it's going to happen every few years. It needs to be something that's factored in long-term in a kind of a general car savings fund or a car little bit that you have set aside. One thing that I've mentioned in the past for that, and as now your name has escaped me, but as we were talking about the CD that Navy Federal is offering, when you are going to do these various savings accounts, or you're wanting to think that way, you're trying to think of little buckets of money, sometimes doing various savings accounts is perfect for that. So we have always used online savings accounts through Capital One. There are various ones out there that you can go through. I highly recommend just checking out Bankrate.com. And they do, I'm pretty sure, get a cut when you open an account through them. But with Bankrate, and I'll just show you what this looks like, you can come in and say, this is what I'm trying to do. So we want to look at savings accounts and money markets. They're all together. We don't have $25,000, so we're going to adjust it and look for a savings account that will let you start with $1. And it automatically ranks them based on which bank has the highest percentage rate. Most of them are online banks because online banks have very little overhead compared to a brick and mortar bank. So if I can put in $1 into E-Trade's bank and get 2.1% interest, it's way, way above what your local bank is probably currently offering. Now we did $1, which is not a lot. So if we had said maybe 100 We would probably have some other options that would return. There we go. We got another bank at $25. That's even higher. But this is BankRate, just so you can kind of see it as an option for finding those savings accounts if you haven't set any up. But you can set up multiple. So with Capital One, we have 2 different accounts. And one is basically like a version of having your, words are gone from my brain right now. We do not have our house taxes and all of that put into escrow. So we don't pay that with our mortgage. Instead, we have to pay them at the end of the year. Those are always due at the end of December. And here you've just paid for Christmas. And so it's kind of crisis crunch. But if you're putting money aside every month automatically into those savings accounts, then you're set come December. So treating those accounts as those buckets, as we look at all these boxes on this budget page or however you treat your budget. And I'm not saying we're all going to fill out this form every single month. A lot of you are going to use an app. But if you do go and have these little buckets, but they're legit savings account buckets, then they really exist. And when you need the money, it's actually there. It really works. So in a sense, it's kind of like taking Dave's envelope system, and we can't cram $100 in an envelope under the bed every single month. Or we shouldn't. It's not really the best way to handle that. You're doing that in an online savings account. There are no fees with these accounts, and you can get the money back. It takes usually 2 to 3 days to transfer money from the account to your local branch. But that's perfect because it keeps you from going in and seeing some new sofa and blowing all of your car replacement fund on something that it wasn't meant to be on. So just a plug for that. I always mention it when we talk budgets, but it's been a huge way for us to keep ourselves out of some trouble because you don't think about those once a year bills. And so as you map this out, it does go through those to help you catch them. Some of the big ones being your yearly taxes on your house and your car, your insurance payments, which if you haven't learned already, you do get a lower price if you pay your insurance payment in one lump sum instead of paying monthly. So if you've been paying monthly, but you have some money saved up and you could actually make that twice a year payment or once a year payment, it will lower your payment. So ask. See how much the difference is. But that's another one for you to be saving monthly so that you can do that. So you can get into that habit of a once a year payment or a twice a year payment, depending on what that insurance policy is. Some of them are 6-month policies. Some of them are 1-year policies. But just to, throw that one out there as a quick way to save on those. And then when it gets down to some of the other categories for you to think about, how they may also need some savings accounts. So we'll get there. I'm going to answer some questions and then dive back in. So let's see. So and I apologize, I don't have everybody's names on these. So sometimes my husband just chats me your comments. So someone says, I need affordable car insurance. When I ask questions or compare what I had or have, the amount is always more. So we were in your boat this year. We've always, I'm just going to call them out. We've had Liberty Mutual for almost 10 years, and they raised our insurance, I would say double over what we paid last year. We have not had any wrecks either, by the way, but they raised our rate twice the amount. So we did the whole call around. There are a few things that you can do with car insurance, and that one is always going to be, if I increase the deductible, how much does that change things? I don't recommend carrying the state minimums. No insurance agent is going to recommend it. And in their boat, you're going to think, they're just trying to make more money. But it really does put you in a rough situation if something big happens. So that's not one that I would touch, but the deductible is, and that means putting some money into a little account just in case you need that too. But raising that deductible as high as you can handle it in a manner where you can pay it is going to help to bring it down. And then shopping around is the best thing that you can do. So we ended up moving to Allstate, which was surprising. It's not where we thought we would be. But Allstate and Geico came right close together on the rate that was very similar. Our house was already with Allstate. So we actually, in making that decision, that's kind of what solidified it for us, because it then gave us a multi-line discount to push those together. So it's really looking into what discounts could I end up getting, and then how can I adjust the cost by either raising the deductible, possibly decreasing if you've got something that's just way overboard on coverage. But those are the big things to look for with insurance. And beyond that, there's not much else that you can do, especially if you've called everybody and gotten every price that's out there. Dollar General question: if I have a $5 off mobile coupon and then mobile coupons, does it take the $5 off coupon first? I did this years ago and I'm just getting back into it. So the way that those Dollar General coupons come off, that 5 off 25 is really what you have. It's going to actually come off last. So those store coupons for Dollar General are always at you must owe $25 before tax. And then after tax, you're going to owe $25 as well. That's how it works. And then the $5 will come off. That is always the way to approach them. Sometimes the computer does not ring them up that way, but that is the wording on the coupon. So we just want to be ready for that one, because you're going to get really flustered if you thought you were going to kind of work around the system. That you just need $25 after any other coupon to be able to use that $5 off. Do I combine cleaning supplies and personal care in with our grocery budget? So Sue, I do combine all of it. And I'm trying to think, Dave doesn't pull any of it out either. He just has it all under groceries. Well, I say that. Dave does. So under personal here, he has toiletries. Look at that. I get to just scratch out a column. So groceries and toiletries and household, all of that gets lumped together for me, because most of that whole section that you're mentioning is CVS. And I'm going to spend a whopping maybe $120 on it over the course of the whole year. That was last year for us. We saved like $1,900 at CVS and spent less than $150 for the whole year. So I don't mind lumping that into my budget when it's really not a ton at all. And that's just playing the CVS game. One thing that is not in our budget, and just to, be on the honest side, is pets. So pet food does not get lumped into our grocery budget. We live on a farm, guys. I can't handle that. And we are at Tractor Supply almost every other week for horses and chickens and dogs and cats. And yeah, so pets are their own little budget in life. And having 2 horses that decided to get sick around Christmas wasn't pretty either, but they also are their own savings account so that you can handle that extra little bit that might pop in too. I'm just going to touch on a touchy subject here. So I don't want to step on anybody's toes, but if budgets are tight and money isn't there, then you need to have a heart-to-heart decision, and you and your husband need to be on the same page as to what a certain number might be. And if a pet gets incredibly ill and the money isn't there, there needs to be a decision as to at what point, is it $2,000? Is it whatever that number is that you're going to say, we can't handle that. We can't handle that payment. So I'm not going to go any further than that, but I am going to say when it comes to feeding your kids or paying your mortgage, that there are some bigger decisions that need to happen. And that's where we are. So my husband's now chatting me like, you shouldn't have said that. So we'll just step off, but any financial planner is going to look at you and tell you the same thing when it comes down to it. Okay. How do I budget for doctor bills? If you only go to the doctor when you're sick and have no idea when you're going to get sick, it also happens with unexpected expenses. So Paige, what I would do on this one is look at your health insurance and look at what your deductible is, and you need to aim to have that much in savings. That's a huge number. Our deductible is like $6,500 a person. It's $12,000 for our family. We just switched health insurance this year. Previously, we were on Medishare, so our annual family portion last year with Medishare was still in the $4,000 range. Whatever that amount is, aim to try to have that in savings. Now, the goal would be that you wouldn't need it, that you're going to have an incredibly healthy year and it's going to sit there and not be spent. Ideally, too, if you're in our boat with a high deductible plan, because that's what ours is, we don't pay a copay to see the doctor. Ideally, you're going to put that in a health savings account. So just make a note of that. There are a lot of them out there. Health savings accounts, I do not have to spend that money. It can just sit there. It can sit there next year and the year after that. I do not have to spend it. It's not a flexible spending account. That's a different creature altogether. So a health savings account. The reason that I encourage you to use that, the money that goes into a health savings account goes in pre-tax. So it decreases your tax liability. And then when it comes out tax-free. So there are actually health savings accounts that you can put into investments. And it can sit there. People use these to actually pay for like long-term care. You started putting money in every year, which you could do if you had that much money sitting around. I know you probably don't, Paige, but just aim to put in the amount of your deductible. So this year the goal would be, no, I'm not going to get sick. That's the goal. I'm not going to see the doctor, but I am going to aim to try. Maybe we try for half. Maybe you can't say I'm going to put $6,000 into this account this year, but I am going to sit here and try to steadily put in $200 a month for 12 months. That's going to give you, $2,400 at the end of the year. Hopefully you're not going to have touched it. Next year, you do the same thing. Well, then if something huge happens, you have your deductible fully saved up. So that's what I would encourage you to do, Paige, whether you're going to see the doctor or not. And 200 might also be way out of your range, whatever it is. Say, you know what, I'm going to put enough aside to pretend that I'm going to go to the doctor once a month, every month. So let's put aside $80. That's how much it is for our kids every time we see the pediatrician lately. It seems like $80. I'm going to put that aside. Hopefully we don't see the pediatrician once a month. I think we went twice last year, but in our house, I'm a nurse. So you've got to be like dying before I'm even concerned. I feel for my kids. But that's the goal. So that's where I would encourage you is think about the deductible of your health insurance and aiming to save that, because then long term, that's what you're paying. That's what's going towards those doctor's appointments and anything else that came. Okay, let's see. And then Paige also says, my husband's car just died and we're down to one car and we're not sure what the best thing to do is. So suggestions for saving on cars. So at this situation, you're already down to one car. It's kind of a tricky one because how long you can hang at one car is different for every family. For me, we would be stressing just in the first couple of weeks with everything that everybody's trying to get to. So if you can hang on one car for a while and not need that second car, then let's do our best to save for it. And maybe it is, let's just go outside of the car here for a moment. For anyone, let's say that you have something just really huge that needs to be paid. This is a great moment to have a no spending month. It's a fun challenge to press yourself to, where we're going to entirely eat from the pantry. We're not going to eat out for any dining out. We're not going to get coffee at any restaurants. There are some exceptions to no spending months. You've got to put gas in the one car you have. But what we mean by a no spending month would be no, I don't want to say frivolous, but no discretionary spending where I didn't have to spend that money, but I did. So in my boat, I'm kind of putting myself in that one. I haven't even talked to my husband, but trying to do that where we don't have any random grabbing of fast food, which happens, especially Monday nights, can be really hard. We finish American Heritage Girls and we hop in the car and we try to fly home, and then it hits me that nobody had dinner. And my plan is to shove them in bed before I start live with you guys. So we tend to grab something fast because, as a parent, I have to feed my children. So tonight we packed a meal and we ate our dinner in the car. And I did hear some grumbling because a sister forgot to pack drinks for everybody. She packed me one. I have no complaints and I did not share. But they'll learn, and next week they won't forget their drink. So no spending month. If you could do that would be huge. Another one would be, and I know not every husband is going to like this one, but if we're really trying to save for something huge, that we do no cable. We turn off Netflix. We turn off everything for a month, and you just tell yourself, we're just going to do this for 1 month, and we're going to live crazy tight, but in the goal of, by the end of the month, that we will have saved maybe an extra $300, $400, because you don't think about how much all of this adds up. And there are some things that you can't just magically turn off. Amazon Prime, you pay for that once a year or something like that. But anything that you're paying for monthly, unless, if we're talking cable, that's a bigger decision because you got to pay to have it turned back on. I would have told you to cut the cord a long time ago, but hopefully that helps a little bit. The other one might be to try to make some decisions and to try to renegotiate some bills paid that you haven't done in a while. So have you looked at your car insurance? Have you looked at some other things that maybe could be lowered to try to save some more money in some other categories? Sue says, when's the best time to replace a heating and air unit? We heat with wood, so we're okay right now. So Sue, ideally, your best time to get the best price is going to be coming up in the spring when it's not super cold, but it's not hot yet. There's no demand. That is kind of their low peak period. If heating and air guys have a low peak period, I don't really know they do. I think they live the good life. But that's going to be your best time. Another thing to look for would be if your state or your local electric company is running any incentives. So if you pull up, for us, we have SCANA, or if you have Georgia Power or wherever you are, so pull up your power company and see what type of incentives they're currently offering. And a lot of them do offer incentives if you get Energy Star or particular units that they're offering. One that ours was offering for a long time was switching from a regular water heater to like a Rinnai that's heating it as an on-demand system rather than a tank system, which, is a whole nother question, but that's what I would look for too. So spring, if you can, really kind of waiting for that, like that April moment. It's the peak month for getting possibly the best deal. Okay. And then to go back on auto insurance. So, I'm getting lots of little notes from my husband tonight. So auto insurance, he's telling me I do need to mention, that you should always look up reputations and company reviews before you dive into things too. That's kind of what pushed us into the Allstate, the last and final bit that pushed us into the Allstate over Geico. When you look up reputations, one thing to mention is if I'm looking for how people feel, you're going to tend to find where people feel very frustrated. People don't tend to leave comments when they love something. They leave comments when they hate something. That's just how the internet works. So do keep that in mind. But you want to look at, even some national ratings that these companies are getting. Are they paying the way that they were supposed to pay? Are they finding reasons to not pay? All of that. Take that into account. So if you're looking at some little tiny car company that nobody's heard of for car insurance, you really want to make sure that in the end you're not going to get stuck with a really huge bill that you really can't handle. And Amy says, I talked about all these different savings accounts. What about a person who has a bad credit score? So Amy, these savings accounts, they're bank accounts. So starting getting a new bank account for someone with a bad credit score typically isn't going to be that related. They're not, to open a new account, they're not necessarily going to even pull it in some situations. They're going to verify who you are. But it's probably one of the best things that you can do is starting savings accounts and having money in those accounts so that it sees that the monthly balance on those savings accounts is growing, is ideal. What you also want to do is that once you just want to open one account first. So for us, we have an account, our main account was with Capital One. And then with those accounts, they'll let you open sub-accounts. So they're really all in the same family, if that makes sense. So when I open up my Capital One page, I see all of those accounts right there. And that you're not going to have any issues with either because it's looking at you as one person in their system. So hopefully that's not going to affect, it won't negatively affect you at all on your credit score, but it shouldn't be a problem for you to be able to get one of those accounts either. And then Deisha says, will Instapots ever be on sale again? I wanted one at Christmas, but I had to buy other gifts. So Deisha, there is an off-brand Instapot that's on sale today at Best Buy. Let me see if I can quickly find it for you, and I'll stick it in a link. But Best Buy, I think it's their Insignia. I might be making up that name. They had one that was $39 this morning. Let's see if I can find it quickly again. I've been all over on their site, so it's trying to show me everything under the sun. But yes, it's their Insignia line, and it's an Instapot. It was an 8-quart, which is a great one. I'm having to think about how you even spell that. But I'll try to find a link and stick it in there for you, and you can hopefully grab it if you want. It is an off-brand, but it still had really good reviews at $39. And even now I'm struggling to find it. Here we go. So, 8-quart multifunction pressure cooker. You got to figure out what they call it since they can't call it an Instapot. But that is, probably the best deal right now for an 8-quart at $39. I would go that route. And you can do free in-store pickup. So, that's the one that I would recommend for sure. It's not the name brand, but it's $39. The other option, this is very weird to me, is if you have Publix, it is in the Publix weekly ad coming up on Wednesday that they have Instapots. They have a 6-quart, which is smaller than the Best Buy that I'm going to stick in the comments here. But they have a 6-quart that is $65 in the new ad on Wednesday. I did search for that because for me, I don't know if you know this, but on the list on Southern Savers, I don't type the entire Publix ad. I only type the items that are the best price today. So when I hit that one, I'm like, I don't even know why Publix is selling an Instapot. I have nothing to go on with price history for this. So the Publix one that is coming up in the Wednesday ad is an older model, but based on that model is still for sale on Amazon and other places. The Publix price is about $15 cheaper than the current price anywhere else online. So if you wanted one, it's $65. It is a 6-in-1, and the current Instapots are up to a 10-in-1. I don't even know what all these things do anymore. We just use the poultry button or the bean button. So they have features that are far above me probably, but those are 2 particular deals for you. Okay. Let's see. So Kimura says, I need motivation to save money by not eating out. My husband and I work full time, and by the time we get home, we just want to shower and jump in bed. So Kimura, here's the thing. We're the same way. I had days, and I work from home and we're all here all the time. I had days, and this was a few years ago, we've gotten out of the habit where come Tuesdays were exhausting. They were hard days. All the new grocery ads switch over that I would just look at my husband. I'm like, we have to go out. I have to get outside of these walls. So we struggle a different way, in the sense that working home all the time, you want to escape. So for us, the best way to get out of that habit has been meal planning so that there is a plan, and actually even down to maybe freezer cooking for you to where in the morning you can get something going. It's in the crock pot, or I can pull it out and it's thawing. And so by the time I get home, all I got to do is put it in the oven. That might be ideal to be enough to get you to break the habit, because what it then takes is just getting into the habit of eating at home. And once I'm in the habit of eating at home, then going out seems like this ordeal. Like, I don't really want to load everybody up and drive into town. And it really did switch for us. So now if we eat out, it's the moments like tonight. It's the fast. We don't have enough time to do all these things. And we need to be 7 places at once kind of moment. So for us, that's what I'm trying to break. And my girls weren't super thrilled when I told them that they needed to pack dinner at 4:30. But it's taking that moment for us and making sure that we've done it and we planned it. So meal planning and possibly some freezer cooking if you're willing to try it, so that you can make dinner slightly easier. Another one, if freezer cooking's out for you, is that maybe you start to look for super quick and easy things that you can make. So one that I love, I could walk into the pantry, but I don't know that I could bring you guys with me without making everybody sick as the computer got shaky. It's not, trying to think what it was called. So this is not going to make some people happy. I know folks that only eat things that are, fresh and you're making them all yourself. But, for those of us who are working at where you are homeschooling or whatever, you can't always go fancy. We made everything from scratch. But these guys, I don't know if you've tried these out or not. They're delicious. And this is about as easy as it gets. You can even cheat here. So to give you a faster way to make this, if you even need to get faster than a pour the sauce on top, is grabbing Tyson, the already pre-cooked sliced grilled chicken, which is going to be BOGO this coming week in some grocery stores. We'd had other chicken that was BOGO last week. They're pre-cooked. They're frozen. So for you get home, you throw the frozen chicken in the pan. You're basically thawing it while you cook it, while you warm it up there, and then put the sauce on top. You're done. Cook some rice. You're done. So I would encourage you to look into some fast ways to get dinner on the table that you like, that you enjoy. We enjoy these, and we love the beef stroganoff. We love the Thai curry chicken of those Campbell's skillet sauces, and you can usually find them on sale for $1.50. Adding in meat on top of that, and dinner's done, I will gladly pay the $1.50 and not have to have the worry or the stress of what's dinner tonight when it's just done. Okay, I need to get back to a few other things. But just try to hit everybody's questions. You guys have a lot tonight. So Angela says, we cut satellite, so no cable here. Those bills got cut years ago. We have an antenna, and we have the cheapest and lowest Hulu and Netflix. And we've never regretted getting rid of that $140 bill a month and now pay less than $20. I'm with you, Angela. I don't know that we've ever paid for cable. We do pay for Sling only during football season, and then turn it off again and turn it back on again. We have a new plan for this coming football season. You gotta work ahead around here, but we are going to try out YouTube TV. So my husband learned that YouTube TV has you can share it with multiple family members. So it's the same price as Sling, but can be shared with up to 5 YouTube accounts. So we're going to try that. We're trying to talk my brother-in-law into joining us on that campaign, and maybe some others in the family that we can convince to and make that even cheaper. So we turn that off as soon as college football season's over. The one that gets people is NFL. And I get this question a lot when it comes to cutting cable. So if you have someone in your family that loves to watch NFL games, you're in a bind because a lot of them are not televised across the nation except for Monday night NFL or Thursday night that's on Amazon Prime now. So the NFL folks, you really are in your own bucket, and it's a really tricky situation. They have a tight grip on what your options are to be able to watch those games. And beyond telling you, what, there's a lot of other things to watch in this world. I know that doesn't help. You love your NFL games. So I don't know. I might just throw my hands up on that one and say, you guys have stumped me. There's not a huge way to help you. But everybody else, there is a way to help you. So cut the cable fast for sure. Okay. Let's jump in and go back through some other things. So we hit just the basics. I shared the Dave Ramsey basic how to get started. But I do want to talk about a few other things before we run out of time. So one of the tricky ones with budgeting is how do we all get on the same page? Usually in every house, there's a spender and a saver, or a miser. It depends on how you approach your savings. I grew up with my dad being that miser. And my mom watches every night, so I'm not going to label her side. But my dad was definitely the miser. I was the kid who, he would walk past your room and refuse to turn off the light, but make you come back and turn off the light. I don't know if anyone else had that dad. So I have a bit of his tendencies. I try to not be the miser, but I do tend to be the one that will all of a sudden kind of jump on okay, we're no longer going to do this, or we're no longer going to do that. So when you're approaching this and trying to come at it from I'd like to stay married to you standpoint, you need to come with ways that you are going to cut your spending, and not attacking ways that they are spending things first. Always come with things that you're willing to nix, from the budget before you attack anybody else's. That's just that's a key strategy for anything in life that you want. Always be willing to sacrifice first, because then other people are willing to sacrifice when you make it, when you make that first effort. The other one is that going ahead and setting across the board a value that it's just outright. If something costs more than this, that you will both have to come to the other one to ask. So that you're not going to go out and randomly buy a $50 power tool, or they're not going to go out and randomly buy a $50. I haven't bought any power tools in the last, I don't know how long, but you get the idea. Whatever that amount is, it just needs to be a, hey, quick, we need this. Not saying that, we're going to have to pass it through some parliamentary rules and procedures committee. It's just, hey, the light's out in the bathroom. I looked for a new one. It's going to be $75. Now, be ready for your spouse to say, okay, well, could we maybe find a cheaper one? But this way, we're both on the same page. We know why that money was spent in Home Depot before all of a sudden you just lose your top because you spent $75 in Home Depot today. So there's numerous reasons there. It's not necessarily like always getting permission. It's just that we know what's happening and we're all on the same page as to what's happening. So that value is going to be different for everybody. If things are super tight in your house, or you have somebody in your house that likes to just randomly go out and grab things, then that value needs to be lower. And that's going to help to kind of stop some of that just random, you went and bought something that we didn't necessarily have to have. And if that is the case, if you've got a lot of that, it can be tricky because that little bit adds up. $10 here and $10 there, it gets expensive really quickly. So you need to figure out what that value is, and you need to both agree on it. The other one, and I've mentioned this again every time we talk about this, we learned this when we first got married, is to take a piece of paper and to tape it to the back of your bedroom door. And anything that you want that is above a certain amount, maybe this is a different amount for you, and it's a want. It's not a need. It doesn't clothe you, feed you, or keep you warm, goes on this list. So if you are wanting, my Christmas gift, I guess, I wanted a treadmill. I wanted it for a really long time. And I didn't put it on the list, but I knew it wasn't something that would ever it just wasn't in the budget. So I decided to ask for it for Christmas. My husband managed to get a used one and found a really good deal. But that would be an example of what's going to hit your list. Maybe it's something different. It's, you've really been wanting, a new book. That would be if your list was really low, but you get the idea. So I'm going to write it all down. When it's been on the list for 30 days and you both agree, then you're good. That's the concept though. But what happens is that you decide usually about day 10, you know what, I don't really want that anymore. And you write something else on the list. And so these first things, they never actually get purchased. And then there's something else is on the list and usually it gets scratched off and you see where we're going. So we spend a lot less money. So I highly recommend that. So that is a tip from, to give credit where credit is due, from Crown Financial Ministries. And we just read their book a long time ago, and they recommended that. So I will pass that on to you. It saved a lot when we were first married in terms of making sure that everybody felt like they were on the same page and that we weren't all of a sudden against each other, trying to fight for the things that we wanted because nobody else was giving them to us. And then the other thing in terms of budgets, and coming back to this sheet again, just to look at it for a second, is when you're filling in these categories, and I'm telling you, there's really not a lot of wiggle room here. So I actually starred mine that I printed out. There's only a few categories that you can actually fully adjust to find extra money, that you need to be reasonable. So if you're looking at the clothing category, some of us, when things are really tight, you want to just say 0, 0, 0, 0. We will spend no money on clothing. And while you can have a really low budget there, maybe you put $20 there. I don't know that it's reasonable to say 0, 0, 0 across the board. Not in a family of 7 people. Somebody is going to end up needing something. Maybe not even every month, but every other month they are. So if I don't spend the $20 this month, that now I have $40 technically that has been budgeted for that. And that's really the case, is that come once a year, somebody's going to have a growth spurt. Or what's really happening in our house is the poor 3-year-old who is getting hand-me-downs that are, some of them 10 years old now. they aren't so swift. So when it comes to that and you realize, wow, you don't have a single pair of pants that don't have a hole in them or whatever it is, then you need to have that extra money. That said, there are lots of ways to save on clothes. Have a Goodwill year. Only shop in Goodwill. I'm currently wearing a pair of pants that I bought there last week for $5. So you can do that and find some very good deals. But just so you realize, we've got to be reasonable. These sections, they're really on here for a reason. We all have these expenses. I guess, let me take it back. There are going to be some boxes you're going to leave empty. I don't have a second mortgage. I don't have home association dues. So some of them aren't going to apply to you, but every major box is going to get filled in. We all live somewhere. So you're going to have a whole housing box. You may not fill in every single thing, but you need to be reasonable in what those numbers are. Okay. To jump back to other things, let's talk savings and getting more money into savings and where we can put that money, because that's where I wanted us to go as well. Now, a lot of times I'll mention apps, so to just mention it again, and I'll actually just get my husband to stick it back in the comments again, but the budgeting post that we did earlier and shared earlier has a number of apps in the bottom of that post. So if you are interested in where to go, if you're wanting to do an online budget and track things, Mint by far would be my recommendation in terms of what is free. Mint is the easiest and the best of what is free. In terms of what is not free, YNAB, you need a budget is what it stands for. But YNAB, and it's linked there on that post, is really kind of my number two. Dave Ramsey has a program, but it's the most expensive of what's out there. So those are back and forth. But even YNAB is still like $85 for the year. So Mint is free. Start with Mint. Mint's at least going to be enough to make you realize, whoa, we spent $300 eating out last month. That's really all we need here is something to kind of give you that aha moment of where in the world your money's going. So you don't need to spend money to figure that out. Mint will tell you that, and you'll be fine. So I would go with that one to at least get you started. Okay, now, in terms of getting more money into savings, I talked about online savings accounts, and we did mention CDs because someone was throwing in the really great rate that Navy Federal has right now on CD rates. So that's awesome. With CDs, where we have been, I would have told you we don't need to go the CD route because typically that rate is the same as a money market rate. So the website that I pulled up earlier was Bankrate. Bankrate's going to let you compare all of these with the savings accounts and the money markets and everything else. If you've got a little bit more money to put in, and you could go ahead and deposit $1,000 or whatever it is, you'll see various options that are available to you. But they're all of these savings accounts are in the 2 to 2.3% range for online savings accounts, where when we deal with CD rates, even that CD rate of Navy Federal, when you look at the national average of CD rates right now, they're like 0.8 to 1%. So paying to lock your money in isn't going to necessarily be where you want to be unless you're getting some crazy good rate like we were mentioning. So just a general savings account is the only route you need to go, and then a few ways to help you get more money into that savings account. A lot of folks don't realize, but if you get direct deposit from your employer, you can actually direct deposit your paycheck into multiple accounts. Now, you would need to go to HR, and they set this up, but most employers, I'm not going to say all, it depends on how they do payroll, but most, if they're doing payroll through any payroll manager, can do up to 5 different accounts for one paycheck. And they can do it at a set amount. So you can say, hey, I want $100 in this account, and I want $200 in this account, and then I want the rest, and that's what they'll call it, it's just net, the rest of what's left in this account, and that's your checking account. So, but you can go ahead and prepay your savings and prepay a side savings, whatever it is, so that you're not having to pull that out. The other thing that you can do is go ahead and set up automatic deposits through your bank. So if you don't want to go all the way to HR or deal with the mean, grumpy lady in HR, that was always the case for me in hospitals. They were not happy to see you when you came in. was go to the bank and just have them set up an automatic deposit every month after your paycheck hits, that it transfers a certain amount to savings for you. And it doesn't rely on you to remember to do that. It just automatically does it. If you do that, you will be so much more successful in actually getting money into savings and keeping it there than you would be if you rely on yourself to remember to move that money every pay period or every month. So just a huge one there. Another one, this isn't going to feel like savings, but it is in a small way. I would encourage you to pay a little bit extra on your mortgage every year, and to do that by paying twice a month rather than once a month. Now, I don't mean like 2 mortgages, but if you pay every 2 weeks instead of every month, so divide your mortgage payment in half and pay that every 2 weeks, you actually end up paying an extra mortgage payment every year. And it's just because of the way that that falls out. It's 26 sets of every 2 weeks rather than 24. And so you've got an extra payment. That extra payment, a lot of people don't realize it, but for most 30-year mortgages, it can reduce your mortgage by 5 years or more. So just to throw that in there, that is a savings account. Paying off your mortgage is a very huge way of potentially being able to retire someday. So I would encourage you to switch to that. A lot of us get paid twice a month. So going ahead and having, if I'm getting paid twice a month, just having that half of a mortgage payment taken out every time I get paid, every 2 weeks when I get paid, it's not that much more of a change for you. If you're already getting paid and then the mortgage payment comes right out from that bit, that's going to help as well. And then on that same note, since we're kind of talking retirement, that also needs to be a bit of what you're saving for. If your boss, if your company offers a match, you should be doing that. That's free money in savings for you. So if they offer dollar for dollar up to a certain percentage, do everything you can to put that percentage in. And before you get scared by that, so if you've always been hesitant, you've never had that money taken out, realize too that it is going to actually decrease the amount of money that's being taken out for Medicare and Social Security and all these other things. So while I say, take $100 out of my paycheck to go into my 401k, it's not going to feel quite like 100. Now, I'm not going to say it's magically only going to feel like $20 because it isn't, but it's not going to feel quite like 100 either, because it's going to decrease the amount of taxes that you're paying on some of those categories. And then you're getting the match. So you should be doing that as well. So I know that's not helping you, page towards your car or towards a new HVAC system, but long term, that money being put aside is a help. So it should be something you're doing above and beyond college, above and, those things for kids they can get loans for, just to give you all the key phrases that everybody says. You're not going to get a loan to retire. So when it comes down to it, that needs to be your focus for sure. Okay. Someone's saying, can I explain how to get the health savings account that I was talking about earlier? Yes. So health savings accounts, we are with Health Equity. So Health Equity, I think it's .com. So, and I'll pull it up just to show you. So Health Equity is a health savings account, and you sign up online, and then they actually will take that health savings account, and you can tell them where you want to invest it, but they will invest it in the stock market. So that's one way that you can really increase your holdings. Now, lately, not so much, but hopefully, all local banks are. I keep generalizing too much tonight. Most local banks offer health savings accounts as well. Health savings account rates, though, are really low. So to just pull up ours, I was looking at ours recently, and ours health savings account wise was, I want to say, less than 1%. But even here, so health savings account, that's this guy, an HSA account, and we can click for rates. I don't even know that it's going to show us what the rates are. So it's typically less than 1%. So just keep that in mind as you ponder, do I want to put this into investments or do I want to put it into just a savings account that sits there? It's a tricky one. The other thing to look for is that a lot of health savings accounts do have a monthly maintenance fee. Very few of them are completely free. So you're going to need to shop around for that. Health Equity also has the same monthly maintenance fee. It's equal to what our local bank had. So for me, it was I can make nothing in interest, or I can have it in some, good mutual funds, and it covers the $3. We're good. No issues on that monthly maintenance fee. So this just to kind of show you the one that we're using. So it's Health Equity. I know the name's kind of cut off there. Let me see, slide it over. But that's just ours. You can use any one you want. I'm just sharing because sometimes people like to know exactly what you use. There are others that will also do investments, so you can research it. But an HSA account is what you want. And to be able to have one, just so we're all on the same page, you have to have a high deductible health insurance plan. Now, you can start that Health Equity account anytime during the year. So it doesn't have to be during open enrollment of insurance. Whenever you feel like, okay, we can manage this. We can even manage $100 a month. You don't have to start it with all of your entire deductible. You can put money into it every single month as you can save it up. But if you have a high deductible plan, meaning that you do not have a copay, you have to pay until you reach your deductible, whatever it is, and then your insurance starts to pay for you. That is a high deductible plan. So your deductible could be $2,000 and still be high deductible. Ours is $6,500, I think, for the first person. But then you qualify for an HSA, whatever that is. You just can't have a copay for doctors, not for prescriptions, but for doctors. Prescriptions are usually with a high deductible plan, not even factored in at all, which isn't fun at all either. Okay, so to jump in, we've got one. Let's see, or 2 extra questions here. Katie says, off topic, do CVS Extra Care Bucks expire? Yes, in 30 days. So you don't want to let them expire. Most CVSs won't take them. They haven't in years. So if you do let them expire, they're just kind of gone, and that's not fun. And Erica says, I need to make decisions on transportation soon. Your car broke down 3 months ago using Uber, delivery services with promo codes and bumming rides. While I saved $2,500, so overwhelmed. So Erica, if you've got $2,500 saved, that's awesome. And for that money, you can get a pretty reliable car. So I don't know, if you've got anyone as a sounding board to help you pick out a reliable car. I would encourage you to try to find somebody to go along with you, because women, we tend to be a little emotional when we make purchases and not always the wisest when we sit down to really look at cars. But in terms of long-term costs, I would point you towards a car that is easier to fix. So we actually had some friends that we went to church with for a while from Brazil. They moved to town and he bought a car from an auction. It wasn't a bad car, but it was a Volvo. And when it comes down, a Volkswagen. When it comes down to fixing that, you're talking about some expensive parts to fix that car versus Toyota, Honda, your key big players. It's going to be a little cheaper to maintain. So that would be a big one. And looking at just the long-term ratings on a car, how's it holding up? There's all sorts of things that you can look up when we're looking at used cars. And then possibly even going direct person to person and not through a dealership might get you a slightly better deal as well. Just to throw that one out there. But I would encourage you to find someone to help you, to look at them with you, to listen for funky sounds, whatever it might be. And my husband's chiming in too here and saying his recommendation would be that you find a good mechanic who's willing to look over them before you make that purchase. And maybe even, if this is the car that you're looking at getting and you haven't made that decision, that you have the person who owns the car meet you at the mechanic. We're not asking them to just loan you the car if they're not comfortable with that for you to drive it there like a dealership would, but meet me at this mechanic because I want them to check it out. It is worth it is worth whatever, the $50, $75 to have that mechanic look over a car before you end up paying for something that becomes a nightmare. It's well worth it. And then my husband's other 2 cents is that Toyotas and Hondas last forever. So my mom is currently driving our old Honda Odyssey, and I'm pretty sure it just rolled over 200,000 miles. They just keep on going. So I would, those would be our encouragements for you on that. Hopefully that helps, but you've got a good chunk of money already put aside. So, that's awesome. I'm encouraged that you've even tried that hard, and gotten that much put in for sure. And some others are chiming in too. So Karen says, to try Carfax.com for some of their recommendations. And hopefully that helps, as well. Okay. I like that one. So Laura's also chiming in and saying, look for an older car being sold by an elderly person. I would agree. They go like this far every single week. So you could end up with a really good deal. And Jonathan, so to jump back into some accounts, Jonathan's question is, how do money markets work? A money market account, Jonathan, to jump back to BankRate, just to show you what those are. So a money market account is it's like a savings account, basically. And with a money market account, the only difference between a money market and a savings account is how many times you're allowed to take money out of it in a given month. And each financial institution is going to limit you a different way. So you just need to read the fine print on that. For us, our Capital One accounts are technically money market accounts. So we could, in theory, take money. I think the limit for us is 6 times a month that you can withdraw money from those accounts. Now, you can put money in it as often as you want, but you can only make 6 withdrawals per month, or per statement period is what I'm pretty sure the fine print is on that, before you would pay a fee. This isn't an issue for us. We're putting that money in there to pay a once a year tax payment. I'm not going to touch it all year. I'm going to keep putting money in it every month, and then take it out in one withdrawal. So that's the difference. Savings account versus money market account is how many times you're allowed to touch it. There's really not a big difference other than that. Some money market accounts do have a higher minimum balance requirement, but a lot of them don't either. So for example, pulling this up, this top one with the top APR right here is technically a money market. So I know there's no way you can read that fine print right there. It's so tiny. But this is a money market with a minimum balance of $25. But the one right below it, which is actually slightly worse interest rate, is also a money market with a minimum balance of $25,000. If you've got $25,000 to put in a money market, you probably long figured out what a money market was. But just to kind of point out that they don't necessarily require this massive deposit to put the money in. It's just limiting you on how often you can touch the money versus a savings account that doesn't always have those limits. A savings account may limit you on how you can withdraw the money. So, you can't write a certain amount of, can only use a savings debit card, or you can't do this or you can't do that. But it's not always a number amount that you can't touch, versus the money market that is. So hopefully that helps a little bit, Jonathan, but they work the same way. Your local bank would even have both. However, your local bank is not going to touch those online rates at all. So I love our local bank. They're great. But I would not put any extra money in a savings account with a local bank. Not only is it easier to touch and very easy to move back and forth, that's where the online banks come in handy because it's harder for you to get it. It's going to take 2 days to transfer it from that bank to your local bank. But the rates are also much better to be in an online bank versus a local bank. So just those are my few cents on a savings account for sure. Oh, and Wendy, those money markets and the savings accounts are FDIC insured. So money market, people hear it and they think of it being like you're putting it into investments. It isn't an investments. It is a savings account earning an a set annual percentage rate every year. So this isn't putting that money into mutual funds like the health equity, like the health savings account that I was just mentioning, and how we've put our health savings account into mutual funds. You don't even have to do that. So if you're really worried, if you are a very low risk stock market stresses you out kind of person, you don't have to do that route. There are typical health savings accounts that are just plain old savings accounts making point whatever. And money markets across the board are not in the market. I wish they almost had a different name for them. They're all FDIC insured. They are just savings accounts that just have that one limitation on how often you can touch them. But it's still a fully insured account to where if the sky fell, you are going to be okay. You're not going to lose your money. Okay. And again, Katie's chiming in again. So, Heather, the Navy Federal. So the Navy Federal being, the CD rate that is 3.25%. So, and that is an incredible rate. So anyone that has that, I'm not sure if you can set that up if you don't live near one, but I'm willing to look into it. So it only takes $50 to start, and no one is currently offering 3.25%. So CDs are also going to be FDIC. I mean, these are just savings accounts that lock you down. You can't touch them at all. So it's kind of like you went from a normal savings account to a money market to a CD. So it kind of gives you the range of how you can affect your insurance. You can affect your savings accounts. I was looking at Katie's question right underneath that on term life. Our term life policy is expiring. Should we take out a new term policy or convert it to whole life? I heard that converting to whole life is a bad idea. So Katie, there's a lot of different takes on health insurance, but generally most people will tell you to stick in term. Some people, however, I want to say it's Dave. Dave's a huge fan of whole life, or whatever it is that he is. I am not. I just remember getting into a conversation with my brother-in-law. Like, this doesn't make sense. But that's okay. So with term, the older you get, the more that term is going to end up paying or costing you. So if it is expiring, you do want to go ahead and get a new policy while you can afford it. The hard part with term is that when you're 60, when you're 70, that it's going to end up costing a lot to keep the same amount of insurance. But here's the thing. Most of us, when we're in our 50s, 60s, 70s, we don't need the amount of insurance that we cover on ourselves or that we do need when we're younger. Because when I'm 60, hopefully, it is just going to be my husband and I living here, and nobody else is still under our roof that I'm needing to be concerned about. So it's not trying to supplement income and make sure that my husband's not losing his mind because he now has 5 children and no wife, which he may still do if that happened. But that's what insurance is there for. It's a monetary supplement that because you're no longer there. So when you get older, you only need enough to bury you. Thereby, the fact that it costs more isn't quite as painful. So that would be me. I would stick in term, and then you're going to just lessen the amount that you carry as you get older. I know that not everybody is going to agree with that, but that would be my assessment. Let's see. Oh, and I'm loving the chime in on things too. I agree with you, Erin. We're the same way. My husband drives a Toyota and would agree with you 100%. On that. You can drive it into a wall, and it still runs. Let's see. Oh, that's awesome. So Shanna said in December, for the first time ever, I paid off my car, and just got the title. Did you feel like framing it, Shanna? Because, we definitely did. We didn't frame it, but you feel like it. Like when you finally paid off that loan, it's pretty huge. So, I'm proud for you. That's exciting. Can you make money on a money market? So Jonathan, you're making interest on it. It's a savings account. So for example, if I put in $1,000, I'm going to earn 3.25% on that $1,000 over the course of a year. So it's not, going to be a massive amount, but it's going to be a little bit. You're going to make $32 in interest by the end of the year on that $1,000 that you had saved in that money market account. Now that 3.25%, by the way, is really, I think is Heather, and the Navy Federal rate, but the 2.8 that we were seeing on BankRea. So that's going to be $28 for $1,000 in a money market account versus your local savings account that might be 1%. Well, 1% on $1,000 is $10. So you see the difference. If I put it in a savings account, by the end of the year, I made $10 in interest. If I put it into a money market at 2.8%, I've made $28 in interest. If I go Navy Federal CD that she was mentioning is $32 in interest. So you kind of see how that plays out. But that's where the money market's coming from. So it's not in the stock market. Just to, we almost should just change the name. But you will make exactly what they tell you on that interest rate, and it's not going to change. So just so you kind of see it across the board. Okay. Let's see. So Barbie is answering Megan's question. I missed Megan's question. So hopefully, let's see, Barbie. I'm going to scroll back up. Oh, mortgage question. Does it actually save you money to not include your taxes and insurance in your escrow? So yes, Megan, it does. So if I escrow something, and we've tried hard to never have something in escrow, and the only way to do that is to be able to put 20% down on a mortgage. They will not even consider allowing you to not escrow if you don't have that 20% in equity. But to not escrow means that instead of paying this set amount in your taxes and your insurance every month that gets put into a savings account, basically, with the mortgage company, you're doing that yourself, and you need to do it yourself if you don't have it escrow. You need to make sure you can make those payments or you're going to lose your house. You have to pay the taxes on your house. But that savings account that the mortgage company has it sitting in pays you nothing. You don't get any interest on that money. You're paying interest on your mortgage with them, but they don't pay you back anything. And by the end of the year, your taxes, depending on where some of you live, we had friends that lived in Atlanta and their house taxes were $10,000 a year. Ours are not that bad in South Carolina. You should move here if you live in Atlanta. It's much, much better. But still, the money that I could put into our escrow account at the end of the year between taxes and insurance, we're still talking about almost $3,000. So $3,000 sitting in an account, just at the rates we've been talking about at 2.8%. That's, let's do easy math here and just make it a flat 3%. That's $90 at the end of the year in interest that the mortgage company isn't giving you. Now, $90 at the end of the year times 30 years that you are paying your mortgage, you see where that's going. So not having your money escrowed long term, it does save you some money for sure. But you have to be wise enough to save the money, or else you put yourself in a very bad place. So hopefully that answers your question in a more tangible route of giving you the finances behind it. So Juan says, budgeting apps that I would recommend. So Juan, I stuck a number in the post that we just stuck in the comments there, the very bottom of that post. But my two that I would recommend is number one is mint.com. It's free. It also is a mobile app. It's much easier to set up online though. So set it up online and then download the mobile app and then you can see everything. Mint is free. And then the other one that I would recommend is ynab.com. You need a budget, is what it stands for. It is $85 a year, but it is a very good budgeting app. It's cheaper than Dave Ramsey's version, and it's cheaper than some others. One other, if you don't necessarily care about having an app separately, would be to go with the old tried and true standard of Quicken and Quicken Deluxe, which is $30 to get the latest version of Quicken. And it will do everything. It will give you the reports and whatnot, and you don't have to get a new version. So, you can just stick with that and be done too. So that's going to be on one computer versus I could log in and my husband could log in. That's where a lot of folks have gone now. So Mint is free. Mint is good. And that's where I would encourage you to start. Let's see. I just started my food budget of $150 for 4 people. So, Holly, I do think that that's doable if we're talking $150 a week. If you're talking $150 a month, that's really tight. And while you can do it, you're going to do some beans and rice. You're going to do some vegetarian and some no meat to make that happen if that was for the whole month. So, I'm not sure whether you're a week or month on that, but if you're a week at $150, very doable. Shouldn't have any issues there whatsoever. For me, we would be living large on that for a week because we're at 70. We spent 80 last week. I actually am tempted, this whole like we're not going to eat out, I'm tempted to be like we're not going to spend any money. It helped today. I was all set to go to CVS today. I've been doing that on Mondays and then realized for half of these deals I needed my inserts. And today is a day that I'm not going to get mail, so I had no inserts. I couldn't go to CVS. So, so far my week's going well. I don't know. I think we're going to end up shopping. But I think you can do it for sure. It just depends. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and call us. We're going to way over on time. I had a great time tonight. I enjoy talking. I'm weird. I like bank accounts and finances and taxes. So while you may not enjoy budgets, it may not be your favorite topic, I enjoy getting to come out and do something different from time to time. So thanks for joining me. I hope that for some of you, we learned something new or we covered something different. In the end, if you've got other questions, feel free to send me a Facebook message or an email. I'm much faster on the Facebook messages, I will tell you that much. And I will try to help and try to answer. So again, thanks and tune in. I know Wednesday I probably will go to Publix. And if not, I will at least try to share some of the top deals while I'm in the store. So hopefully that will pop back up in your feed and you'll see it too. So y'all have a great night and I will talk to you again soon.